Well, John, thanks for having us on your Zoom account, which should lead to a slightly more polished appearance and also give us a little more breathing room against the time clock that we were under my account. And John, obviously, Lars and I do this every week, and we're looking forward to having you here. Hopefully more often than not. You've got some really good insights and gave some great feedback last week about how we can improve this a little bit. And we took those first steps this week by going to a slightly longer format and also sending out the fines well in advance of the call. I hadn't thought about it, but the whole surprise angle probably wasn't the best thing for everybody. So you guys hopefully received an email earlier today with some of the fines for this week, which took on a theme that is near and dear to my heart these days, but it was pickup trucks. So sent three recent sales of iconic 90s and 2000s era pickups, and love to hear your thoughts on them. So just before we start, you guys received those fines?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
John, do you want to share from your end, or do you want me to share? How do you want to do that?
If you want to share from your end, I can make you a co-host, Jeff.
Okay, I'll pull up right now.
Yeah, or I'll make Elizabeth the co-host.
And also new for this week, we are looking at cars and bids in addition to bring a trailer. So that figured we would just mix it up a bit and kind of go to both places as we look for the best and most interesting find related to a particular theme. Now, Lars knows. Lars and I were talking about this the other night. I recently kind of brought home a project that got a little bit of attention over the past few months, which is the 98 Dakota RT, and I was kind of shocked by how much I enjoyed it. And not only the fact that it's just a neat truck and makes some fun sound and goes pretty good, but also it's just nice to have a vehicle in rotation that is utilitarian and has a little bit of function over form. And John, you daily drive a pickup, so I know you know this, but that's why I went with these finds this week, because it really kind of struck me as being something I've had my eyes open to in terms of the potential of having a sort of an enthusiast vehicle be one that is also quite utilitarian. So excited to jump into these. So I'm not going to kind of go into my feelings first. I'm going to kick it over to you guys. And the first one is this 89 Toyota pickup SR5 extra cab 4x4. This was on Cars and Bids. I watched this auction throughout the week and thought it was a little bit of a sleeper. It wasn't perhaps the most desirable spec, but it was super clean and it got a great number of clocking in just under 33,000. So I'll kick it over to you guys. What do you think of this result?
John, you can start us off.
Yeah, so I was looking at this, and it brought up a lot of thoughts, and these are really cool trucks. First off, I mean, they're really neat looking. This is kind of the beginning, and we'll talk about another vehicle in a few minutes here. Like when a truck became something that you drove, even though you didn't have you weren't a contractor or you worked on a farm or something like that. Like this was the beginning of people to buy and drive trucks on a daily basis that didn't really need a truck. So this was kind of the start of that, and we'll talk about it with something else. So just kind of looking at prices, I mean, this went for what, 32 grand. So it's 30,000 miles. It's the 5-speed V6. It's, got no mods except for the cab, the side steps, which are pretty standard for any type of kind of aftermarket truck. I was skimming around looking at prices on these, comparables. So I know there was an SR5 extra cab with a 5-speed mods with 154K that went for, 12K earlier this year on Cars and Bids. There was one on Bring a Trailer, an automatic, which had almost 2,000 miles that went for a little under 10 grand. This is a high number. And this is kind of my food for thought for you guys is who's buying this truck? Who's buying this? Are they buying it because this was something from their youth? Are they holding on to this as a future classic? Are they hoping it's going to be, worth more in the future? And, and you guys can discuss this more. Is there starting to be a bubble for things like this?
Really good point. I really feel like it depends who you're asking, because I think there's going to be some people out there who would say, crazy enough, who would say, this is actually a pretty decent deal considering the age and the condition and the miles. Um, and I see this a lot selling cars. The Tacomas, I mean, you can talk about supercars and other limited edition vehicles, but I think for just regular traffic, these Tacomas and the Toyotas in general are just so shocking on how well they actually hold value for an extended period of time. So, Jeff, this is kind of something we discussed in some of the earlier episodes of our little podcast here. But we always find these older vehicles that are in nice condition, that could still be driven and used every day. And we always make the point, you could go buy a new Tacoma or a lightly used Tacoma for around the same price with around the same miles. Or you could get something really cool, unique like this. I don't know if I see that being an extremely representative number of the market. I actually have a coworker who's looking for a vehicle just like this, but actually the Forerunner. And I think it comes down to the fact the reason this pulled in a lot of money is because at one point in time, probably in the early 2000s, these things were throwaway cars. They were cheap. They were left outside. These are very prone to rust. So, now 35, 40 years later, you see a mint one with sub 50K miles and a stick and perfect interior, and it's almost kind of like a unicorn, because though they made a lot of them were also trashed. So it's a little shocking to see the number, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me, I'll say.
Yeah, going off
Yeah,
what you said, Lars, I'm just sorry to interject, Jeff. Like everything else I was looking at was high mileage, 90K, 137K. So,
Yep.
and kind of getting back to the points, like if you're buying this, are you going to be using it for those truck purposes? That's where I'm kind of like the sticker value, the sticker aspect of it.
Agreed.
yeah. I think this one in particular is sort of I think the commenters who were casting doubt on it were wrong to do so. I think this truck actually is probably a little better in person than it even looks to be here. That bed cap, I mean, if it were me, I would have pulled that bed cap off before listing it, and I bet this would have seen a few more dollars at the end. The details are just really they're just spot on. I mean, even just this little thing right here, like the mud flap, the fact that the four-wheel drive lettering is still near perfect. It hasn't faded. The coloring inside the letters hasn't faded away. And look at the hardware on the flaps themselves. I mean, those still look like screws that would spin very easily. And obviously the decal. These were the decal is sort of an iconic feature of Toyota pickups of this era.
Mm.
Everything is just like, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, this is a shockingly correct example of one of these early four-wheel drive V6 pickups with the stick. So I think if we're looking at it like someone paying 33,000 to use this every day is the wrong view. I think this is actually probably far more of a time capsule than we think, and
Mm.
someone bought this to have what might be one of the nicest ones in existence, that hadn't been restored. And then you throw in the fact that it has these mileage, that mileage is proven to be accurate, which I'm guessing that paperwork and paper trail shows that it is. Uh, I would go ahead and say this is. I think this is probably a fair price. It just didn't look like that truck. It didn't have that feeling of being presented as time. It looks like, it even says in the comments or the listing description, the seller got it from the long-term owner's spouse. So I guarantee you, owner passed away. This guy's right time, right place. I doubt he did anything. Honestly, a seasoned seller would have gotten rid of that bed cap. You know,
You think so?
within. Oh yeah, I do, just from an aesthetic standpoint. I mean, you maybe you say like it comes with the truck, right? It's in the description somewhere. It's sitting next to the garage, but I would have taken it off for the photos, and I think the truck would have presented even better. This really strikes me as someone who just walked into this thing, thought it was cool, thought it was a nice specimen, but but didn't even really go all the way they could have with presenting this as just a home run of an early Hilux or Tacoma, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think this is fair money for one of these.
I tend to disagree because I'll throw the question to you guys. Like, so say you're the buyer. You won this bid. What are you using this truck for at this price? Are you storing it in a garage and just pulling it out once in a while? Are you using it for truck related purposes, or
no? I think I think you're buying it as a piece of it's a garage trophy. It's something
you're not buying it as like an investment. It's more of a
no. I think you are. I think you are. I
really.
think yes. I think if you look at what I mean, there are shops literally popping up that are only doing Toyota pickups going back to the early, like the first four-wheel drive trucks that they're specializing in those all the way down to the modern Sequoia, and it's a mixture of they're flipping time capsule trucks, or they are doing sort of a cross between an overland slash resto mod build on on the full size Toyota SUVs. This is a lot of people I don't think pay attention to these as it relates to how they're being treated as like a Singer treats the 911. There are shops that are specializing just in hawking clean preservation spec Toyota, four-wheel drive Toyotas from the early 80s through the middle 90s. So
so you saying that, let's just say we're back here 25 years from now, that this truck is going for 60, 70 grand.
I wouldn't bet against it. Yeah, I think it's entirely within a realm of possibility. If for no other reason than, again, similar to some of the other trucks we'll look at tonight, they're not making trucks like this anymore. You cannot buy a basic four-wheel drive extended cab pickup with a stick and cloth, and it's gone. The days of a truck like this just aren't here anymore. So again, you're forced into buying either. I don't even know if you can buy a poverty spec four-wheel drive pickup. I don't think it exists. So you're just right into spending upwards of 40, 50K for a truck with the right equipment. So it could be, John. The only counterpoint I give to myself as it relates to who's buying this is it could be for someone who has throwaway mounds of cash, that they're like, I get something cool, I can use this like a truck. I'm not out 60 grand for a Lightning, and it's still going to get me high fives at Cars and Coffee.
That's where kind of, because Lars brought up the brilliant point that, and that's a no-brainer, that trucks hold their value. Like, what's making someone, instead of buying this instead of a certified pre-owned Tacoma or something like that.
And the final thing I'll say before I shut up, though, is that even going back 5 years ago, I was trying very hard to find what would be a second generation 4Runner with a stick.
Yes.
And even 5 years ago, there was a little tiny place in North Carolina that was specializing just in hard to find Toyota trucks with the right equipment. And that was 5 years ago. Like, I think there's always been a submarket that deeply covets Toyota trucks with the right specs. So I think you go either way on this one. I think either outcome applies here in terms of why someone paid what they did.
And as you mentioned, it's a clean vehicle. I mean, I believe it's titled in Arizona, so nice dry weather compared to a Tacoma. A pickup of this age that was New England based is a big difference.
Right. All right. Are we good with this one? We move on to candidate number 2.
I think we covered just about everything with that one.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This is. I'm gonna let Lars kick this one off because we were just talking about one of these.
Jeff, you knew.
2001 Dodge Ram quad cab 4x4. Right, quad cab. I think this is more an extended cab, but tomato. I mean,
I'd call that an extended cab.
All day
yeah,
long. Quad cab, if
yeah. Quad cab is four
that's
doors.
extended.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. But this is the Bill Paxton truck from Twister in real life. I mean, this is just awesome. So, Lars, go for it. I know you're hot under the collar for one of these right now, so I want to know if you would have. I bet you would have paid this money for one of these.
You know what? So with these trucks, right? It's kind of going back, Jeff. These are all different trucks drastically, but the thing that they have in common is something, a thought that came to me when you guys were just talking about that Toyota, right? So in 25 years, I do think that something this clean and this low mileage, it's going to be worth good money, right? But I don't think people are seeking these out and buying them as an investment piece the same way people are maybe buying an E30 M3 or an Audi Quattro or an old Porsche 911 that's been well kept. I don't think it's the same at all. I think these higher priced listings where you actually have a group of buyers who want something like this, even though, this is just a Ram 1500, it's got the 5.9 Magnum, which is a great motor. But I mean, really, when it came out, it was nothing too special. If you see a base model Ram on the road today, you're not going to think twice about it, right? I feel like these sales, and this is kind of consistent with all these trucks in the class, maybe besides the Lightning, because that's a specialty vehicle, but these sales, they stem from people who, like, oh my God, my dad had one of these back in the day. And I remember I was riding shotgun as a kid. He passed away. I had one just like this, or an older gentleman who used to have a vehicle just like this when they were younger. And now that they have some money that they can throw around, they see a mint one and they're like, holy shit, that's the same truck I had in high school. I want it. But it's a double-edged sword because, like I said, they will hold their value, and in 20 years it's going to be extremely rare, and you'd be hard pressed to find something this clean. But it's weird, and I feel dumb saying this, but I can't say I'm surprised that it sold for this much. But then there's also a part of me that's like, damn, 21 G's. It's just, kind of a base model, extended cab, nothing too special, besides the motor. So, I'm kind of in between on what I think about it, but I think the person buying they have one of those personal affiliation experiences.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of, it's a cool truck in that regard. And Jeff, you were of a similar. Yeah, I don't know if you remember when these trucks first came out in like '94, like how they just blew everyone's head because they were no longer the kind of boxy, truck that we are used to from. And Dodge was kind of the poor sister of the big three when it came to trucks. Like no one really cared about a Dodge Ram. It was either Ford F-150s or Chevy Silverados, and this kind of just changed the game completely. It made full size trucks kind of cool, and put more thought into design. First off, price wise, I was just kind of looking around to see what else was out there, price wise, and what else sold. And there was a 2001 1500 SLT quad cab that was silver that sold for 15 back last year. There was another one in Cars and Bids earlier this year that had 63,000 miles that went for 12. So this one kind of has all the features as Lars was talking about. It has that cool feature. It has the Magnum V8. And something, maybe Lars, you might be the person to answer this question. Do you think the Cummins engine trucks hold their value better than the Magnum V8s of this era?
Crawling out of my skin here.
If not, that's fine. I was just curious because I saw a lot of when I was just skimming through. And Jeff, you can answer too. Do you think the Cummins trucks, the diesels, are going to hold their value more than this?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. And it's a sad thing to see the direction they've gone, right? Because, and I was actually talking to Jeff about this last night. You talk about a 12 valve Cummins from first and second gen, Dodge Cummins trucks. I mean, those motors are absolutely indestructible. It's all mechanical. There's no emission system. The issue with these modern diesel trucks, right? The motors are good, but the EPA and they have all these regulations around them. So all the electronics and the emission stuff around the engine suck. when you look at some of these older diesel trucks, I think there's always going to be a market for in people willing to spend all the money on a clean, well-kept diesel truck. But again, another argument I want to rebut, and I'm sorry to kind of cut you guys off here. An argument I want to bring up, a lot of people will say, well, diesel trucks hold their value better. You'll if you find a diesel truck versus a gas one, it's going to be 8 to 10,000 more. Yeah, jackass. That's because when it came out, the diesel was a $10,000 option. You know what I mean? So you have to think about that. Any diesel truck, it's going to be 10K on top of the price of whatever it is. So that has something to do with it. But I throw this around a lot. They will never, ever, unless the EPA just stops doing their thing and there's no more regulations, they'll never make a diesel engine like they did in the 90s and early 2000s. So I don't know.
Yeah.
A little bit of a rampage, but
getting back to this truck, I think the red sells it. I mean, you talk about different colors, and when you think of this era Dodge Ram, you always think of it in red.
Yeah, well, I was messaging my brother last night about I mentioned to him that I saw at the local Lowe's. It was like would have been probably a 98 Chrysler Concorde in the parking lot, which was kind of, there was a Concorde, there was a Chrysler LHS, there was the Dodge Eagle Vision, Dodge Intrepid, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
the LH platforms.
And I was just commenting. I messaged. I was like, man, I forgot how attractive those cars were, and it led to a bigger discussion about how the middle '90s to the early 2000s was like the high watermark for Chrysler Corporation. I mean, the designs were phenomenal. They were building, like, every car they built had some component of being like a driver's vehicle. They really, it felt like they were listening to the enthusiasts in everything they made. Down to the lowly Dodge Stratus that actually had like this alter ego as a pretty decent touring car in Europe. I mean, it was just like, and I forgot this, that like in the early 2000s, when everything kind of went to shit and they were building cars like the Dodge Caliber and the Chrysler 200. That was when they actually got bought by private equity. They got bought by Cerebus Capital Management, which I had completely forgotten about. And so I don't think that's like necessarily factoring in at this point, but really this, Lars, you mentioned that pickups in general, probably more so than other cars or other types of vehicles, can trigger those nostalgia feelings because so many people had a pickup in their life, either
totally
they use it or their father, their parents use it. So I mean, that's always going to be in the background with a vehicle like this. But I think also this was these were just, this era of Chrysler products was pretty darn great. I mean, if you're a Mopar guy or girl, you probably, if you're of a certain age, you probably look at these and we're just like, yeah, this is when they just were hitting home run after home run from a design standpoint. And
this was the peak of like the Bob Lutz era of, where he was in charge of kind of the car aspect, and where he was a big believer in cars looking good and handling well. So I mean, this is kind of the fruits of his labor, starting with all those cars you mentioned.
Totally.
That's just sort of an undercurrent here that I don't think the collector / vintage car market has really given a lot of credit to just yet. But I don't think it's an accident. Like, I mean, listen, every car guy who's a total nerd like we are, you want to believe you're some sort of secret genius when it comes to the vehicles you buy or you like. And I mean, I can't help but notice, like, I mean, this Dakota I have, like, there's been some pretty phenomenal results in terms of recent auction sales for RT spec pickups that, I mean, a few years ago we would have said that's insane. And so I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think there's going to be a continued appreciation for Chrysler products from like 95 through 2001, 2002, especially when they're in nice shape, because that's the other thing about pickups and American vehicles in general is people treat them like shit. So the second they hit a second or third owner, I mean, they are just it's garbage time, and they are just beaten, and they're not maintained, and they're neglected, and somehow they keep running. So I mean, that's like the third leg on the stool here is just to find one of these that's not been
Yeah.
so sorely neglected is something, because something happened too there, because like you can still find like a what would it be, like, the D150 pickup from 80 middle 80s to late 80s that ran
Yeah.
up against the classic C10. Like a lot of people took really good care of those, and you can still find like a nice C10 that someone cherished. I
Mm.
don't know what it is. I don't know what happened to us as a
It's
society.
like a culture thing shifted,
It
and
did. It did. And we
yeah,
just started
Yeah.
like everything was throwaway. So that's like another thing that I think you're going to see that kind of keep picking up, where like things like this are going to be, it's just going to smack people in the head like, oh yeah, this does not come along every day.
yep,
Yeah,
Uh,
this was the first kind of head turning American full size truck, because I
yeah,
know our next vehicle kind of goes into that, and then you go into what we have today with Sierra Denali's and really
right.
loaded up full size trucks.
So overall, I think this was a great buy all around. I don't see how you lose on this one, and this is a truck that I would feel comfortable saying, you know what, I am going to use it every week
Mm.
like a driver. I'm not going to. I'd be a little less reluctant to use it as I might the Toyota, just from the obscurity standpoint. So I think
yeah.
this is a cool buy all around, and one that I think
Yeah.
will continue to appreciate nicely. So let's look at
Yeah,
our
but I
final.
think
Yeah.
I think the Dakota is a little bit cooler though. I'm just gonna throw it out there, man. Just
Well,
because it's smaller. It's smaller chassis, smaller frame, smaller footprint, everything. It has the same drivetrain, which I think is that's awesome. That's pretty
I
awesome.
I restrained from putting one of those on here because I feel like that's influencing the jury or something. But
Next
yeah, no,
week.
I agree. I agree. Um, so on that line of a muscle truck, this is our third and final submission, which is a '99 F-150 Lightning, uh, just under 30,000, and let's see, 66,000 miles. So not a time capsule, but still look like a very nice truck. I again, I'm not going to be the first, but I'll just say I love these. I love Lightning in general, and aside from the goofy taillights, I thought this was looked like a ton of fun for the money. But I'll kick it over to you guys. Lars, you want to take the first jab at this one?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. I absolutely love these. This is kind of like that same era where, they were kind of branching out and seeing what people liked. I feel like, and to be honest, you guys will be able to answer this better than me because I wasn't even really conscious when this thing came out, right? But I feel like at the time it was probably a little bit underappreciated. But now looking back, you kind of ask yourself, man, who the hell let them make this thing, right? They took the 5.4 that already existed in this 10th generation F-150, slapped a supercharger on it, and gave it side pipes. I mean, come on now. That is so cool to just do. You're still seeing these things, the same concept being pretty popular today. We actually just sold, we have a Raptor R that we just sold today for 40,000 over sticker. So to
Over.
say
Over.
over sticker, yeah. So
What does that end up at out the door?
151. So to say that it's dead, it's absolutely not. And it's just again, and I hate sounding like a broken record, but it's kind of like one of those things they really won't make something like this again, even though they are right now. Pretty
But
soon, it's going to be rare to see something like this. But obviously, that Raptor R with the supercharged 5.2, it's similar and it's still selling even today. So I think this thing has stood up to the test of time. And even though it's a pickup truck, they have made no efforts to make it look utilitarian. It's not made to carry wood. It's not made to haul people. It's made to go spin some tires, bang some gears, and I just think it's a really, really cool truck. And if you've ever seen one in person, the whine that comes from these things, it's a theatrical masterpiece. It really is. So I love it, and I think it's money well spent.
so I gotta, John, before you jump in, I'm doing some math here. I just want
All
to.
right.
I'm gonna not take issue with, but because Lars, I'm not gonna pick a fight with you, but I'm just curious about something because
Do it.
you mentioned,
Pick it.
so you mentioned the fact that the Lightning or the R, I'm
Raptor
sorry, the
R.
Raptor R that you
Raptor.
just sold went for 40,000 over sticker, which works out to 150. You said that right out the door price is 150,
Yeah,
and
yeah, around that.
you made
Plus, 10 grand of sales tax. Continue though.
you made the comment like, oh, but we're still kind of like doing this thing. We're still making a performance pickup, which is true, but this Lightning in 99 cost 30,000. That was the MSRP, which in doing a quick inflation calculator says it's the same as today as spending just under 55,000. So I still think we've like gone somewhere we're never going to come back from, which is that now you look back on it and say, oh, we could have bought what was the equivalent to a Raptor R for just under 55,000.
Yeah,
It's not an apples to apples comparison, Jeff, because like the Raptor R is like almost like a pre-runner style truck, whereas this is like a Cobra truck, you know, if you think about it.
But how is that better? How have we like made things better for us? Like is that's what I don't understand as far as that. And I get it. Yeah, the different. It's meant to go over sand dunes at 130 miles an hour and not break.
which it will, which it absolutely will.
But
You're saying it will go over sand dunes or it will break?
yeah, which
Oh
one?
no, it'll go over, man. Those things are tried and true. I will say, even though people think it's just like an F-150, you slap a supercharger on it. I will say that vehicle is very well thought out. But yeah, 110 Gs. But also when this thing came out, that's when a nice house was like 100 grand
Yeah.
type thing, and a really, really, really good salary was like 50 or 60,000. Things have kind of changed a little bit, I would say, but yeah, we definitely, we doubled the price of the sports truck, doubled.
But they've all doubled. I mean, look, I mean, every
Yeah,
truck like that.
they have.
But that to me makes this thing even more of just a screaming bargain. I mean, because here's the thing, great, the Raptor can do these incredible things. I still see most of them are driven by uh angry contractors through the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. I mean, it's still not
100%.
they're not being any they're not used anywhere close to how they could be used. Whereas this I could just go out and just drive it, be obnoxious in traffic, whatever, but I'm not missing out on anything. I'm not like underusing it by 75% because of what a Raptor could do that most of its buyers won't do. And I know that's everything, right? It's a Viper 911. None of those guys are tracking those cars. But again, I still remain confused. And I'm sure the elite or, hear a comment like this and say, oh, look, the poors are talking again, where I'm just like, I don't care that I could go out and spend that on a Raptor. I'd rather have this and 6 other cars that I can use every day. So, that's my rant. I think this is just a phenomenal deal, and I don't understand quite the fascination over something that costs so much more, and you still can't use it anymore, and you could use one of these.
Yeah, this is a great deal. I mean, it went for $28,000, 66,000 miles, and these things hold them. This is kind of the theme of the night. If you were say if the drinking game was these things hold their value, you'd be hammered by now. But just looking at other auction bids, there was an 02 with 17K that went for 38,000. Went for 38,000 this last month. An 02 is 6K. That's on Hemmings right now for 40K. And I had a friend that had one and he loved it. And the supercharger one is crazy. It was too much truck for him, and it's nice seeing one that hasn't kind of been, hopefully hasn't had the snot beat out of it, because I think we've all seen one or two of these, that have been hammered to high heaven by the driver on a consistent basis. And something else I was thinking, like, color wise, does color matter? Because just kind of scanning the auctions, there was 2 white ones on BAT that sold closer to like 20K. Do you think the color on this truck helps?
Oh yeah, I mean, if it's kind of like people don't want to talk about it, but there's like an unwritten rule that if you're buying a performance vehicle, it should, or a performance truck, whatever it is, it should be a certain color. And I mean, I knew a
Yeah.
guy who was an avid spec Miata guy, and he raced extensively, and his belief was that every race cars should be white. Like every track car, he had 3 track cars, they were all white, and that was his belief. I don't know where he got it from. So people do have um, long held notions of what something should look like in terms of what it does and what its color is. And I think a white Lightning, it does feel like it's too soft of a color for a truck like this. And also it blends in a little bit. 'Cause as much as I think this is such a badass truck in terms of the subtle details that set it apart, the white one could maybe blend in with the furniture a little bit too much. And, the naked untrained eye might not spot the front bumper and the lowered stance and what have you. Whereas I think with this one, you look at it and there's little doubt in your mind, especially you might not know why, but yeah, I suspect people who are hot for one of these are saying, I want one in red, like the one in Fast and the Furious that Paul Walker drove, or I want one in black because black is just universally sinister. And there's also, I saw this a few months ago, parking the driveway. They made sort of a really almost like a vibrant blue, like a Volkswagen Jazz blue.
Yeah, the my buddy that had one had it in that color.
Which I had never seen before, and that's actually that was a great color in that truck too. So I do think these are a darker, and I also I'll say the silver ones completely fall flat. I've looked at the silver one before and just felt like again it just felt like it lost 10% of its attitude right out of the gate. So
Yeah.
I definitely think color matters here.
Yeah, and this kicked off the muscle truck thing because you remember what comes after this. The Ram SRT 10. This is when Chevy got semi-serious with the SS. So this kind of kicked off that small phase of early 2000s, hot rod trucks.
Yeah, because it went from the early 90s were the first salvo of the opening shot where you had the 454 SS, the original Lightning, and the Cyclone and Typhoon. And then it kind of got quiet. We stopped building performance trucks, and then like all of a sudden Ford comes back with the Lightning, and it's like, holy crap, they bolted a supercharger to it. Where did that come from?
And also, it's kind of weird because you saw a shift too, because look at muscle cars of this time period of 02. Camaro was getting phased out. Dodge didn't have a muscle car. Ford had the Mustang. That was it. So it kind of just shifted to, instead of muscle cars, it became muscle trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, this was a sort of you were rescued by the muscle truck if you were hungry for, and maybe you were disappointed by the SN 95 Mustang, which felt like such a letdown after the classic Fox body. At that point in time, the Cobra really wasn't all that potent. I think most of the early complaints about the SN 95 Cobra was that it wasn't that much faster than a standard GT. So you might have been feeling like, what would that be? A fourth gen Camaro was. I mean, to this day, those things just aren't really worth anything because it didn't. The enthusiast population did not embrace them like they did the prior model generation. So, great point that it was almost like they were spending more effort on the R&D side of their performance-based hiccups rather than the classic two-door muscle cars. So. That's a terrific and man, I just keep going back to this picture. That stance is. That thing is
so mean. Mean.
Again, there's got to be an upgrade out there for like just standard all red taillights, which I would absolutely do. But the rest
those
of
taillights really bother you, don't they?
What's funny is there was an article about a performance parts store in Ontario, Canada, that was being liquidated. And it was like a time capsule from the late 90s,
yes,
2000s.
I saw that,
and it just showed like rows and rows of Alteza taillights.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which for having my formidable years of an enthusiast being at that time, I don't hate them like some people did, but I don't know why. I just don't. I can't really. I just feel like swapping those out would be a tremendous improvement on this truck. But aside from that, everything else is just phenomenal, and I feel like this is a deal and a half at the sale price for one of these.
Yeah, you're not losing money on this truck.
No,
If you go to sell it in a couple years' time, you're not losing money.
not at all. Well, that rounds out our list for this week, guys. I really appreciate you jumping on, and Jon, this has been great having a little more breathing room in the discussion, and also I think having a few more hours to prepare and think about these led to some really fantastic dialogue around these. So thank you, gentlemen, for making the time, and we're gonna keep doing this as long as we can, Jon. I know you're gonna make us look a little more polished this week with maybe just some mild editing, and we'll anybody who's watching, we're going to continue to refine this process. And if you are watching, we do some additional commentary on just collector cars and trucks each week on our homepage, which is thecommongear.com, and actually there's an article up there right now about a vehicle that Tyler Hoover bought on Bring a Trailer, and he's calling it sort of the second time he's been scammed by a seller on there in terms of a vehicle arriving in a condition it wasn't described in. So, we like to talk about the collector car market each week, the good, the bad, the ugly, while also discussing our own vehicles. So check it out, and we'll be back next week with another theme. Leave it up to Jon or Lars to pick what the theme will be for next week, and we'll find 3 more vehicles to kick around. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday.